Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 8, Text number 44. Shipitara Ucho Shwarani Nod Pitarje Prasadam Tanujayar Shwarani Nod Di Bhutuje Bhushanam Tanujayar Tatani Tirtha Samye Pyapibat Tilambo Tatani Tirtha Samye Pyapibat Tilambo Tasyodaranaka Vidirna Vapadyadachad Tasmai Namo Nri Hareye Kilo Dharma Goptre Shipitara Ucho Shadani Nod Vipuje Prasad Bam Tanujayar Tatani Tirtha Samaye Yapibat Tilambo Dastodayanaka Vidirna Vapadyad Archad Tasmai Namo Nri Hareye Ikala Dharma Goptre Shipatara Ucho Shadani Nord Vipuje Prasadam Tanujayar Tatani Tirtha Samaye Pyapibat Tilambo Tasyodaranaka Vidirna Vapadya Archad Tasmai Namo Nrihare Kila Dharma Goptre. Next, let us, before we proceed further, let us recite the Guru Parampara Pranams, please. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Shramaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesa Nivari Skadade Satarane Om Agina Tamirindasya Gina Gina Shalakaya Chaksun Manitam Gena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapadam Gena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dharati Svabadantiham Mandeham Sri Guru Sri Jata Parakamanam Sri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Shagjatam Sahagana Ragunitam Nitam Stam Sajavam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parijana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanitam Scha Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopaka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radha Yishwari Vishwavanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Bhajja Kalpa Kripascha Kripasindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavadevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So before beginning, I want to respectfully offer my Dandavat pranams to all the assembled Vaishnavas here, who are not ordinary human beings. who are at the present moment residents of Braj, due to being in the land of Srimati Radharani, who is the Queen of Vrindavan. So no one here are ordinary living beings. We need to know that. And also, everyone here are connected with Srila Prabhupada. Anyone connected with Srila Prabhupada is not ordinary human being. Therefore, I take the dust from all the feet of the assembled devotees, place on my head, pray for your loving mercy. So now the purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is the duty of all Brahma householders to offer food grains to their departed forefathers. But during the time of Hiranyakasipu, this process was stopped. No one would offer Shraddha oblations of food grains to the forefathers with great respect. Thus, when there is a demoniac rule, everything concerning the Vedic scripture principles is turned upside down. All the religious ceremonies of yajna are stopped. The resources meant to be spent for yajna are taken away by the demoniac government. Everything becomes chaotic, and consequently the entire world becomes hell itself. When the demons are killed by the presence of Nrsingadev, everyone feels comfortable irrespective of the planet on which he lives. So, the first point is that the Devas are offering their prayers after Lord Nrsingadev has killed Hiranyakasipu. So this is the proper etiquette. They're offering their respectful obeisances. Even the residents of Braj will sometimes offer homage to Krishna, but in general it breaks their mood because the residents of Braj are not in Aishwarya Bhav. Aishwarya Bhav means formality, like Mother Yashoda and other residents of Braj. Bhanu Swami explains that Braj, the core of Goloka Vrindavan, is divided in two. It is Rajavid Rajagu, it's confidential knowledge, but he's revealing in the Shastra elsewhere, it is revealed that Bharajdham is divided into two, Aishwarya Dham and informal Braj. In Aishwarya Dham, the residents of Braj are remembering that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so their mood is similar to that of Mother Devaki in Mathura. She's in Mathura, so they're almost in Mathura Ras in that sense, but still it is higher than Mathura because it's Braj. But they are unable to forget that Krishna is God. And the other half, the other portion to which everyone sitting here is headed to the other portion of Braj. Why? Because we are Prabhupada Nugas. We are followers of Srila Prabhupada. Certainly Srila Prabhupada is not from the Aishwarya section of Braj. Certainly he is from that section of where all the cowboys, for example, do not think of Krishna as being the Supreme Personality of God. They only see him as being their beloved friend. So that contrast we have to see. So the Devas, they're always in Aishwarya Bhav, always in formality. And when that formality is disturbed, they become disturbed. Classic case is Lord Brahma. He was watching from the heavens as the cowherd boys were taking remnants of foodstuff out of the mouth of Krishna, or then they were eating, or they were back and forth like that, sharing prasad mouth to mouth. Lord Brahma became bewildered. How can this be my almighty Lord Vishnu? Of course, he's the supreme intellectual of the universe. Therefore, intellectually you understand, okay, this little boy is incarnation of Lord Vishnu, or the source of Lord Vishnu, intellectually. But there's gyan and there's vigyan. Vigyan means realization and practical application of the knowledge. Gyan alone is not sufficient. Vigyan must be there. Now, I also heard some very nice explanations by Bhanu Swami that Lord Brahma is not covered by Mahamaya in the Brahma Mahotsav Leela. Rather, he is covered by Yogamaya. It's the will of the Lord that he should be bewildered in order that that pastime should take place, in which, once again, Krishna is proven to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead above all the devas, including even the CEO of the universe. Because Lord Brahma is the topmost, most advanced priest and CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the universe. He's in charge of the whole show, very, very high position, massive pratishta. Pratishta means, position, big position. So, in this way, Krishna goes out of his way to diminish the false pride of all of the devas and even of any other powerful personality like Lord Shiva. Just like in the Krishna book, there are so many fights, not so many, but there are a significant number of fights between Lord Shiva and Krishna. There's no animosity whatsoever. It's sporting mode. They're having fun. They're sporting, But whenever there's a fight between Lord Shiva and Krishna, Lord Shiva doesn't win. Like the Shiveshwar and the Narayaneshwar, the weapon of Lord Krishna, defeated the Shiveshwar, the weapon of Lord Shiva. So, in this way, that's only one of the pastimes. And then these things come up whenever Lord Shiva tries to defend his devotees, the demons. He's very loyal and very faithful to protecting his demon devotees. He does his duty. He's their guru, their father. He's everything for them. But because Krishna is the supreme, therefore Krishna defeats them. Then again, when Krishna went up to the heavenly planets, and it was Satyadama who wanted the Parijata flower. So it was, Krishna is a perfect husband in Dwarka Leela. Dear, can you give me that pretty flower? I'm going to take that flower home. Sure, no problem. But there was a problem. So he stole it. He stole the whole plant. But it didn't go over with Indra's wife. It didn't. She knows, hey, what are you doing, Indra? You are letting Krishna steal the Parijata flower from my garden? She considered it to be her garden, her private garden. Well, my dear, this is after Krishna defeated Indra and by lifting Govardhan Hall. This is after that. So yet again we see that Indra is become bewildered. Even after the lifting of Govardhan Hill incident, which he was completely, massively defeated. So then she says, no, I don't care who he is. You say he is this, that, supreme, all these things. He's Bhagavan, maybe. But he's stealing from my garden. Do something, you fool, you eunuch. What's the matter with you? Big time chastising. You're supposed to be a Kshatriya hero, but instead you're acting like a eunuch. You can't allow this intruder to steal from my garden. What kind of protector are you? She's chastising him, you see. So, Indra, yes, dear. Okay, so then a war started. Lord Shiva sided with, and all the devas sided with Indra because he's the chief, So all the devas sided with Indra. There was a war with Krishna, and they lost. And Shiva was the head of those. But again, it's just sporting mood. It's all fun and games under Yoga Maya. No actual hostility, you see. These all arranged again and again and again to show Krishna's position, because so many people who are devotees of Lord Shiva around the world believe that Shiva, Vishnu, and so forth are one and the same, well, that's a long explanation. I'm not going to explain that now, but you must have heard that Krishna is compared to milk and Lord Shiva is compared to yogurt or dahi. So the dahi comes from milk, no doubt about it, but it's transformed. Not exactly the same. You can't say they're identical. So to say that Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Bhagavan Lord Shiva, the same title is there, but you can't say they're identical. Lord Shiva, these pastimes are engineered by the Lord simply to prove that Krishna is the supreme above all of the devas. So the defeating of Indra is another incident, multiple defeating of Indra. The Brahma Mahotsa Leela, showing that even Lord Brahma was capable of being bewildered by the Supreme Lord, by his Yogamaya potency. So in this way, their worship is in Aishwarya Bhav, formality, the devas. So then, that's why Lord Brahma could not accept, well, if this is my Almighty Vishnu, how is it possible that they're pushing foodstuff in each other's mouth and he's taking remnants, Lord Vishnu taking remnants from some coward boys? This can't be right. It can't be my Almighty. So he wanted to test him. Well, excuse me, but devotees don't test Krishna. I mean, that's why it's Yogamaya. Devotees don't test Krishna. We don't test Krishna and see the real thing, you know. No, devotees don't do that. So he was covered over so that the pastime would take place. And then, of course, at the end, he surrendered. Now, there's something very significant that when Indra also made an ass out of himself by sending the Sambhartaka cloud, and then being Sambhartaka cloud is that mega cloud that drowns the entire universe and brings the floods of devastation at the time of devastation of the universe. He ordered Sambhartaka. Actually, Sambhartaka didn't want to go. But, oh my Lord, Indra, please understand, this is not an ordinary coward boy. What are you doing, you impudent fool? I ordered you to go. My Lord, that's Krishna's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't care who you say he is. Go. If you don't go, I'll cut your head off. All right, my Lord. All right, I'll go. So then he surrendered on the threat of being killed by Indra. He went, and he came with a devastating rainfall. And Krishna held up Govardhan Hill. Nobody was harmed whatsoever. So in this way, Krishna again proved his supremacy. But the devotees, they remain residents of Braj. They remain in their loving relationship with Krishna. They don't see, every time they see Krishna do something extraordinary, you know, they might momentarily think maybe he's God. The doubt might flash across their mind. Doesn't stay very long, for a few seconds. But no, maybe he's a deva, this, that. Those thoughts vanish swiftly under Yogamaya because it spoils their bhav. Their prem. Just like when Mother Yashoda, the coward boys were tattletaling on Krishna, little baby Krishna. Mother Yashoda, your boy's eating dirt. So, you know, he's a very adorable, cute little boy. So, Mother Yashoda, but she already knows he's a liar. He's a little kid, but she already knows he's a liar. So then she says, then the Krishna says, Mother, they're just trying to get me in trouble. My friends are just trying to get me in trouble. She says, oh, really? Let's see. I want to see for myself. Open your mouth. So she opens her mouth, and then she sees all the universes, universal form, everything, you know, everything, whole universe she sees. And she even sees herself with baby Krishna sitting in her lap, you know, inside of the mouth of Krishna. So in this way, she becomes confused because it breaks her natural prem, and which she doesn't know that Krishna is God. So then, seeing that she was confused, bewildered, and that her mood of prem was disturbed, so swiftly Krishna restored the curtain of Yogamaya and said, All right, but don't do it again. So that is the mood of the residents of Braj. They can't bear to think of Krishna in any way other than their beloved child, their beloved friend, whatever their natural ras is. So this is the difference with the devas who are always in Aishwarya Bhav and don't want to be disturbed from that. So the Hiranyakasipu was by force enjoying all the offerings of the Shraddha ceremonies performed by our sons and grandsons on the anniversaries of our death, and who drank the water with sesame seeds offered in holy places of pilgrimage. So somebody might ask, well then, these are Vedic rituals, are very important. Then how come Prabhupada didn't introduce all these things in our society? Why isn't it widespread? Of course, nowadays, our Brahmin priests in ISKCON, many are going to Mayapur and getting the full training from Janadivas Prabhu. The 3-month course, it includes all kinds of varieties of Vedic rituals, And so if there was a need arise, if somebody wanted, they could do such Shraddha ceremonies like that, So, but it's not widespread in our society as far as mainstream devotees. In Hindu society, of course, it is still there. But in our mainstream society, it's not widespread. Why? Because if you chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And all these Vedic rituals are taken care of automatically. And if you offer a plate of prasadam to the deities, then automatically it is pacifying the ancestors, even if they are on lower planets or they became Bhutas. And besides that, perhaps you know that even a so-called ordinary devotee, of course there's no such thing as an ordinary devotee, because everyone are Mahatma, everyone who chants Hare Krishna are Mahatma, who have been practicing devotional service for many lifetimes before coming to the point of coming in contact with a Nityasiddha devotee like Srila Prabhupada. So somebody might say, what about how the ancestors are going to be delivered? The answer is, if you remain serious in Krishna consciousness, Shastra says 11 generations are delivered. Haribol! Haribol! That was weak. Haribol! Haribol! Don't you think it's impressive? 11, you're sticking your hand in a bead bag, you're chanting some combination between Namaparad and Namabas, hopefully on the Namabas side, and then 11 generations, you're eating only Krishna Prasadam, you're not eating at 5-star hotel restaurants, right? And so, 11 generations are automatically, as a side benefit, automatic, without you having to consciously do anything, all the ancestors for 11 generations are delivered. And if you count that, you can't count it. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16. I'm not a mathematician, don't ask me 16 times 16. But the number keeps squaring on both sides of the family, mother's side of the family and father's side of the family. The number keeps squaring. That means by the time you get to the 11th generation, the number of ancestors delivered is in the millions. Because each time you square the number, square means double. So each time you square the number, that's a mathematical term. Each time you double the number, so if you're already up in hundreds of thousands, you double it. And then you going into the millions already. I can't say how many millions. Hundreds of millions of ancestors are delivered, you see. And even if they're down on the lower planets of suffering in hell, all of a sudden, Chitragupta or some representative of Chitragupta, he's the secretary of Yamaraj, he dispatches on Yamaraj's order, you please take this notice here to Mr. Joshi. He's down in section 11 down below. So he takes the notice on a piece of, palm leaves. They didn't use parchment as animal hides. In the Middle Ages in the Middle East, they used animal skin to write on, but not in Vedic culture. And certainly they didn't use paper books the way we do today. Everything was on palm leaves, so anything written was on palm leaves. So, yes, you take this notice. Here's your notice with my official seal on it. You take it down. Mr. Joshi is in section 11 down there in the lower planets. He's suffering very greatly. You take him this notice, please. He goes down. Oh, Mr. Joshi. Mr. Joshi. Who is Mr. Joshi? Oh, it's me. I'm Joshi. Because he's boiling in boiling oil, you know. Not exactly fun, you know. Oh. Why are you calling my name? Well, Yamaraj has given the order that you should be released now. Oh, don't be cruel. I'm already suffering so much and you're giving me these false words. Why are you saying like that? No. This is see, here's the seal. Here's his seal. It's for real. You are going to be released now because, why? You must be some cruel joke. No. It is official order by Yamaraj that you must be released because some ancestor later generation is offering Krishna Prasad and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare. Therefore your term in hell is being cut short. Haribol! Much louder, please. Haribol! Very good. So that's why we're not doing ancestor worship or ancestor. Sometimes, you know, as a Hindu families may come forward, our priests may go and do something. That's all right. But it's not widespread in our societies because it was not introduced by Srila Prabhupada. So otherwise we would see it everywhere. So all this was stopped by Hiranyakashipu. Therefore the Devas are elated, very happy, because the Lord killed the demon. We're trying to understand that Devas are Sakama devotees. How many of you know the meaning Sakama? What? Prabhu, you're a very senior man. You're a very senior man. I know you've been around for, how long have you been around?
22 years.
Huh?
22.
22 years? Did I hear correctly? 22 years, but you don't know the meaning Sakama? Please do your homework. Let me see a show of hands again. How many of you know the meaning Sakama? Sakama means somebody. Kama doesn't just mean lust. Kama means desire. Please do your homework, Prabhu. Devotees of the Lord, all the devas across the board practically are Sakama. I mean, chuck full of material desires. Not only sex desire, Kama means lust, but it also means desire. All varieties. They want the powerful weapons. Oh, you looked crooked at me, you're dead. You know, they want that. They want the beautiful gold armor and the helmets and the jewels embedded in the helmets. They want all of that. They want the privilege of being able to have sex with any one of the dancing girls. If one of the dancing girls comes and asks a deva that they want to have sex, Kshatriyas are different, you know. Then the Kshatriya must agree, you see, according to Vedic rules. This is one of those don't try this at home stories, you know. You're not Kshatriya, so don't try it. You know, oh, this beautiful girl is lusting over me, okay, it's my duty to offer her sex. No! We're not Kshatriyas. So, in this way, so much enjoyment is there. If you want to know an idea about the enjoyment, you can read the story of Gajendra, the deliverance of Gajendra the elephant, the giant king of the elephants, who went for a bath in the lake. How many of you have read the story of Gajendra the elephant? That's a little better. I say only a little better. Please read in Srimad Bhagavatam. They're interesting stories. If you like stories, read Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, I was in Calcutta, and it was, there was a mela of 800 congregation members, and they had come together for a celebration. Suddenly I got inspiration to sell Srimad Bhagavatam sets. Out of the blue means Krishna. On the spur of the moment, I got a desire to sell some Bhagavatam sets. Now in Calcutta, they don't buy books. The Calcutta temple book distribution is very, very low. And the Calcutta people generally have a know-it-all attitude. They tell me, it's not my opinion. They used to be in the 1800s the intellectual capital of India, which is noted by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So the best philosophers in the world were located in Calcutta in the 1800s. So anyways, so they not interested in Prabhupada's books. But I just decided, oh, I'll try selling some Bhagavatams. So I started telling them about what's in the Bhagavatam. And they were amazed just by informing them what's in the Bhagavatam. A little unconventional. I said, do you like to read trashy novels? You like to watch television and see all these sex going on of other people, you know? But your local Hindu priest can't tell you anything about the private sensual life of Lord Shiva. But Bhagavatam tells, they go, oh, really? You know? And I was telling them other confidential things. What about the great kings throughout the universe? What about their private lives? I mean to say private lives. Their sensual activities. What about interstellar wars? You can read about that in the Bhagavatam, you know. You don't have to go see Star Wars to learn about interstellar wars. The Bhagavatam is full of stories about interstellar wars. So when I was done, I said, all right, who will take a set of Srimad Bhagavatams today? And a man jumped up from the audience and said, I'll give 500 rupees to anyone that buys a set of Bhagavatams today. And so I said, all right, so how many of you will take sets of Bhagavatams today? 30 people agreed to take sets, pledges. 30 people agreed to take pledges for Srimad Bhagavatam. Haribol! But I caught the Calcutta devotees off guard. I should have told them to have clipboards ready to take all the names. I hope they got all the name, contact numbers and all. I told them to go out, fan through the audience, catch those pledges fast before they go stale, you know. Anyways, that's Srimad Bhagavatam. Whatever you want. It's a desire tree. Whatever you want to hear about, it's there. You want to hear about sex life, it's there. You want to hear about wars, it's there. You want to hear about astonishing weapons, it's there. Everything is there. Inconceivable weaponry. Detailed descriptions. Everything. If it's a desire tree, you know. So you can't go wrong by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam or taking shelter of Bhagavatam. Now, in the last few minutes that I have, Panchagoda Prabhu asked me to say something about my experiences with Srila Prabhupada. So, of course, I don't have time now to tell everything, but I didn't have a giant amount of time in association with Srila Prabhupada. But I'll tell the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada. How many of you heard me tell this before? You haven't heard me say it. Okay, so I'll tell the first time I saw. I'd only seen black and white pictures of Prabhupada. Some of those pictures, Prabhupada looked very grave. He wasn't called Prabhupada in 1968. He was called Swamiji. And I'll just say that. So how did the devotees start calling him Prabhupada? All the devotees from New York and everywhere means there was only 3 temples: New York, Toronto, Canada, and Boston temple was open later, and then San Francisco, about 4 temples maximum. Only about 150 devotees when I took initiation in 1968. So there's one devotee, Govindadasi, very wonderful Vaishnavi. She lives in Hawaii. So she introduced this worship of Tulsi Devi. Well, Prabhupada introduced it, but I mean, she was the first to bring seeds of Tulsi Devi to the West. Haribol! If you want to know how Tulsi Devi came to the West, it's a pastime. She got, Govinda Dasi got the seeds, planted them and distributed them, and they spread all over the Western countries after that. So I was new devotee, brand new. I didn't know anything about Prabhupada. I saw black and white photographs where he looked very grave. So I had no heart connection with Prabhupada at that point. I'd accepted him as my guru, but it wasn't very deep, you know. Then Guru Das had these photographs, black and white photographs of Srila Prabhupada in his house. His hobby, I'm not sure if it was his career, his hobby was taking photographs. His whole house was wallpapered with photographs of Srila Prabhupada. There was no other subject matter. I was a little bit offensive in my mind. I went to his house. He used to be married to the famous Jamuna long, long ago. And so in their house, he had an apartment and wallpapered with pictures of the Swami. I thought, my God, you know, there's so many beautiful things in this world. Why only the Swami? Why only Swami's only subject? I didn't have any love or deep attachment for Prabhupada yet. So then time came, the Prabhupada was returning to San Francisco after traveling. I didn't know he traveled, so I missed the opportunity for a lot of intimate association I could have taken. In 1967, I started coming to the temple. So the thing is that I had the wrong impression of the Swami, you know. So then time came, we went to the airport. It was only about 25 or 30 people, hippies, carrying lit incense and flowers. That was a hippie thing, you know. Flowers, incense, some of them flowers in their hair, you know. And also some devotees. There weren't very many Dodikirta devotees in those days. So a small band of enthusiastic worshippers or admirers of Srila Prabhupada went to the airport to greet him. Suddenly Prabhupada appeared on the landing, means the platform at the top of the stairs, the old-fashioned roll-up stairway. Wasn't one of those big tubes. So as soon as Prabhupada appeared at the top of the stairs, he had both arms up in the air like this. Yes. And he was wearing were you on that plane? It was 1968. So he was wearing at least 4 or 5 gardenia garlands. In those days, gardenias were 6-inch diameter and highly scented. Prabhupada was very, very fond of gardenias. There are numerous photographs where he's wearing multiple gardenia garlands. He was wearing those. He put both arms up in the air. And he was delighted that the devotees were chanting kirtan. Remember, there wasn't much kirtan going on around the world because he was the only one that was introducing it on a wide scale, world scale. So just to see, try to understand Prabhupada, just the gratitude. Oh, here are some souls who are chanting the holy name of Krishna. So grateful. You see, unconditional love. And he was broadcasting this unconditional love like a parabolic dish. You know, a parabolic dish, those giant dishes that go on top of buildings at airports and places like that, you know. So he was broadcasting from his heart the tsunami of love, of prem, not just ordinary love, prem. Now I had been a university student and I was not my habit to be sentimental, but when I saw Prabhupada, he had the effulgence of millions of suns. Haribol! Haribol! That was weak, come on. Haribol! Haribol! Effulgence of millions of suns. And the prem was emanating from his heart like a mega tsunami. So it knocked me over internally. Physically I remained standing, but internally I was knocked over by the tsunami of his love. It was so powerful. So I burst into tears. I was a student, you know, formerly a student. I was not a sentimental person, but just by seeing Prabhupada, I burst into tears. I thought, oh, this person has the power to deliver the whole world. Haribol! That was weak. Haribol! I understood that he was Jagat Guru by realization. I didn't know the term Saktavish Avatar either. But I understood that he was Saktavish Avatar by revelation. I had no Sanskrit background. I didn't know the term Saktavish Avatar. But I could understand, oh, he was Saktavish Avatar. Not ordinary. I knew he was not from this world. I'm not the only one. As other devotees, they have this similar experience, yes? It's the first time seeing Prabhupada, I understood he was not from this world. He's confirmed by Pandit Shruti-Kirti. So, in this way, I was transformed, my whole attitude. So after that, I thought, oh, I was convinced, yes, he's Jagat Guru, I have to do something to make him famous. So I decided I'll see if I can arrange a radio interview for him. I knew there was, in San Francisco area, I knew there was a alternative radio station. That means not an ordinary AM station, but an FM subscription only, intellectual station. They played classical music. They discussed controversial modern politics from a left-wing standpoint, things like that, you understand? So an alternative radio station, not a conventional one. So I thought, well, they are into alternate and unusual things. So maybe they'll be interested in an interview of the Swami, charismatic Swami from India. So I called him up and I asked, there's a charismatic Swami from India who's in the Bay Area now. If I interview him and give you the tape, will you play it? They said yes. I thought, Jai Haribol, this is great, So I was waiting in a small room, and there was a table lower than this, actually. They call them coffee tables, about 8 inches lower than this coffee table. And there was, the tape recorder was set up. It was this old-fashioned clunker. You young people can't imagine what tape recorders were in the 1960s. You wouldn't believe it. You'd die if that was the only tape recorder available. They were more than a meter wide, and they were this tall. That's a third of a meter tall. And when he turned it on with a very stiff bar that was on top, it would literally go clunk, and it was reel-to-reel tape, So that kind of tape recorder was set up for the interview. Of course, Srila Prabhupada had seen that kind of tape recorder before in New York. He had used that kind of tape recorder in New York City. Those 1966 vintage series recordings are available. So he knew, he had seen this kind of tape recorder before. No doubt there was very less difference between this tape recorder and the one he had used in New York. It was almost the same. That didn't matter. It was a new gadget. Srila Prabhupada liked gadgets. He did. He would have liked laptop computers. Of course, they weren't invented. Computers were very, very crude in those days. He would have liked laptop computers when properly utilized in Krishna's service. Same thing, he would have liked mobile phones when properly utilized, but he would have sternly warned the devotees, don't use them for sense gratification. Just like telephones, long-distance calls, international long-distance calls, Prabhupada almost forbade them. Almost forbade them, isn't he? He was, with thumbs down. He didn't want the devotees making unnecessary international phone calls. In those days, they were very, very costly, So it was thumbs down on international calls. So devotees were forced to be very conservative. Anyways, so Prabhupada, he had used this same tape recorder in New York, but he wanted to see how it worked, the one that I was sitting at. So he got down on his knees on this low table with the tape recorder sitting on top, and he started playing with the tape recorder. He wanted to see how it operated exactly. He wanted to see if it was exactly the same as the one in New York. He just wanted to test it, so he did. He tested it. So then, after a few minutes, he was satisfied. But in the meantime, seeing I had a little bit of the proper conception of relationship with Guru should be formal. So he was down on his knees next to me. I thought, my God, this isn't quite right, you know. I had never been told anything about etiquette, but in my heart, Chaitya Guru was telling me, you know, this shouldn't be too familiar with Acharya. But there was nothing I could do. Prabhupada was down on his knees, and I was next to him. If I had my way, I would have dropped into a trapdoor in the floor just to be lower than Prabhupada. That intuitively I understood, or Krishna was tipping me off, but with nothing I could do. So he finished playing with the tape recorder after a while, and then I'd been afraid about interviewing Prabhupada. I was a little nervous. So I went to my friend Upendra before the interview. I said, Upendraji, I'm going to be doing this interview with Srila Prabhupada. I'm a little nervous because I haven't done this sort of thing before. He said, don't worry, Swamiji will do most of the talking. So I had 3 questions I had formulated. I only remember one of them. The first question I asked Prabhupada was, there have been so many English translations made of Bhagavad-Gita, why you've made another translation? So Prabhupada answered, explaining how they were distorting the true message and were not acknowledging Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They were full of impersonal incentives. So Upendra was correct, went on for 20 minutes explaining that, you know, so I was off the hook. I asked 2 other questions, I don't remember what they were. Anyways, I also had good fortune in San Francisco. In those days, the devotees were very poor, you know. It's not like modern, you can't imagine now everybody's conditioned to modern ISKCON, so many fabulously wealthy temples nowadays in our society. It wasn't like that, you know. The San Francisco temple was so poor, they couldn't pay the rent. Couldn't pay the rent on time. But the landlord was very liberal, fortunately. Apparently he liked the devotees. He did not evict us. He could have evicted us, but he didn't, you know. But in spite of all of that, the devotees, the cooks, when I joined the temple was Jamuna, Malati, and Jamuna's sister, and a few other, yes, Janaki, and some others from that extended family. And in this way, the prasadam was top of the line because they'd been personally trained by Srila Prabhupada. And they only cooked in ghee. Only cooked in ghee. In those days, Sunday feast was samosas and deep dish apple pie. Really nice. I got hooked on prasadam. Like hundreds of thousands of other devotees around the world, I got hooked on Krishna Prasad, you know. That kept me coming back, you know, before I moved in, you know. Really top of the line. Cooked by Jamuna, how could it? So they'd all been perfectly trained by Srila Prabhupada in how to cook. Only in ghee, couldn't pay the rent, but they were cooking only. Never crossed their minds to use vegetable oil. Never crossed their minds, not even crossed their minds. They never did it. And the ghee they had to make themselves. There were no Indian stores. You couldn't run to an Indian store and buy some ghee. There were no Indian stores. Yeah. There were no Indian stores in the United States, hardly. There were very less Indians in those days. So you could just run to the Indian store, buy a jar of ghee. There was no such thing. So anyways, when I got second initiation, one of my first services was making the ghee. Take a block of unsalted butter, put it in a wok, and babysit it for hours on a stack of burners, 4 burners tall, on a very low flame, so it would have to cook very slowly, and you have to watch it so that to make sure it didn't burn, you know. And then you skim the impurities, the solids off the top, and in the end you have this beautiful golden butter oil ghee, you know, in the end. So that was my first service after second initiation. And I was trained in a very strict way by Jamuna and Malati. I was trained very strictly, you know. Before I got my second initiation, I wasn't even allowed to light a stove or to speak of cook. Because that's the way we were trained by, that's the way they were trained by Srila Prabhupada. So anyways, I That was my service. So then another wonderful service I had was somebody had to drive Srila Prabhupada. By some inconceivable good fortune, I was asked to drive Srila Prabhupada. Now there was, as I mentioned, there's no money in those days, so they couldn't go out and rent a limousine. A few years later, when the book distribution started up, then the devotees had money, by selling books. That was Prabhupada's plan, to finance the temples by book distribution. So then, this was long before Life Membership was established. So then there was no financial problem after that. Once the book distribution was established, no financial problem. So, anyways, there was no money to rent fancy limousines. Later, they would rent a stretch limousine for Prabhupada, or fancy car, Mercedes-Benz. Fancy cars they would rent. They didn't own any, devotees didn't own any in those days. But there was nothing like that. So there was an old broken down Chevrolet, 1940-something Chevrolet. That was the limousine. And by inconceivable good fortune, I was asked to be the driver. So when I was driving Prabhupada, I felt like I was driving the king of the universe, I felt as if I was driving Indra, it seemed like the greatest service in the three worlds. It was, actually. Chauffeur for a Nityasiddha devotee of Mahabhagavad. I was right. Beyond the three worlds, Bhur-Bhuvasva. Nityasiddha means eternally liberated, so I was thrilled. I felt as if I had on a black uniform with a hat with a gold stripe on it, like a professional chauffeur. It was ecstatic. Just to give you an idea of Srila Prabhupada's way of thinking, on the way to the temple, we drove by a building. Prabhupada was always thinking in terms of expansion. From day one, he was thinking in terms of expansion of the movement. Just like Malati was telling her remembrances a couple of years ago here in Vrindavan. And she said there were only about 8 devotees on the morning walk with Srila Prabhupada and Golden Gate Park, famous park in San Francisco, where Prabhupada would go along the shore of a beautiful lake, still there, sacred place. Nobody knows that except that even devotees don't know. It's called Stowe Lake. It's a beautiful lake, a beautiful park, world famous. Prabhupada would go to the shore of that lake and walk around, circumventing it. So there are only about 8 devotees at the most. Malati, Jabuna, and a few others. Gurudas. Huh? Mukunda was there, yes. So, very few. Mukunda Maharaj, he started San Francisco Temple. It was his inspiration. So going around, there was no money for big limousines and that kind of thing. There was no money available. So I was a driver for Prabhupada. And we drove by a building. What I was going to tell is what Malati's remembrance. She said that Prabhupada speak about this Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada was talking to them, his privileged disciples. This Krishna consciousness movement will spread all over the world. And she said, she was thinking, movement? There's only 8 of us, what is this movement? Movement? She couldn't foresee. What Prabhupada saw it all. He saw the expansion of Krishna consciousness all over the world. As in the park bench in Montreal, Canada, he was sitting with a non-devotee and was explaining about the future of the movement. We have got temples all over the world. We have restaurants. We have farms. We have everything. We are only separated by time, you see. So it came true. Only separated by time, and inspiration to devotees to perform these projects. So anyways, we drove by a building. It was a building with columns, Roman-style columns. You see, we had been in the San Francisco Temple on Frederick Street was like the size of a shoebox, very small, It was 1/8 the size of this plaza here, perhaps, maybe even smaller. Very small size. So then Prabhupada was thinking about how to get a bit larger temple. So then he said, buy that building. Well, we were broke, the devotees didn't have any money. But he wanted to buy it. He would sometimes give these impossible orders. He wanted the devotees to buy that building. They didn't have money, they couldn't even pay the rent on the temple they already had. But he said, buy it, So that was Prabhupada's way of seeing things. Later, the devotees of San Francisco did buy a large building, and it was formerly a funeral home in the West. They put dead bodies in coffins and put them in the ground, and then there's ceremonies in a special auditorium before that called a funeral home. So the devotees managed to get together enough money to buy that. There was a program around the corner. Some Hindus started coming to the temple finally because it was a nice temple building. Not so many hippies anymore. The Hindus didn't want to come when there were hippies there. So then there's near about 2 blocks from the temple, there was some Hindus owned a temple building. I'm not temple building, a hotel. It had a veranda in it, and an open plaza. So devotees arranged a program for Srila Prabhupada there, and some Hindus came, guests came, and the small flock of devotees that was there, they weren't traveling internationally yet, didn't have the money for it. So one memorable thing on that occasion is when Indian man handed Srila Prabhupada a piece of whole wheat karmi bread, handed it to Prabhupada, just to see the mercy of Prabhupada, he took one bite out of it. He took a bite out of it. Amazing. Haribol! And then he handed it back to the man. His remnants, Maha, he handed it back to the man. So, of course, there's many things to tell, many more things I could tell. I'm out of time. Thank you very much. Anybody have any question? Okay, well, anyways, we're already running late, so... Oh, he has a question. You may have to relay the question for me.
Correct. In Bhagavatam, you said there are many stories in the Bhagavatam.
There are many more.
In the Bhagavatam, there are many stories.
Of my personal interaction with Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. There are more, but it takes me time.
In the Bhagavatam, there are many stories.
Yes, many stories in the Bhagavatam.
Many stories, and each of the story in the end it is written that either you are liberated or you are going back to body.
Yes.
And those stories says if you read this and this, you will get liberated and you will go back to Godhead.
Yes, you'll get liberated if you read the Bhagavatam, yes. So what's the question?
Question is that in each story it is said that when you recite this story or think about the stories in the morning or evening, you are liberated or you are going back to body. So when we try to read them, we understand that that we are going back to body or we are liberated.
So he's saying that after all these chapters, it is said the Shruti people that this, if you read this story, if you recite these prayers, you will go back to Godhead. So he's saying how it works.
How does it work? So the answer is that you are amassing inconceivable sukriti or pious merit simply by touching Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why Prabhupada put so much emphasis on book distribution. Simply by touching one of Prabhupada's books, then one becomes delivered from repeated birth and death. In the course, it may take some time. So the answer to your question is that they may be separated by time, but their liberation is guaranteed. They're going to get off the samsara cycle. But if they have more karma to work out, they may come back again, but they will be awarded again association with devotees. Or if they become devotees, then they become serious devotees, they'll be transferred to Gokula, one universe where the pastimes of Krishna are taking place, and they can work off their material desires while being in direct personal association with Krishna. So there'll be different kinds of results depending on the desire of those souls. You see, it's not cookie cutter, it's not stamped in the same result for each person. There'll be different results according to their karma, according to their actions. Does that make sense? Okay, I think we better stop. Thank you very much. Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gurantana Shima Bhagavatam ki jai.